So why is it in the world should we accept the counter from women that they make these bold claims that this and that happened to them, absent any evidence that it did?
I'm probably going to get a lot of woman hate from this, but I actually agree with Andrew 100%, at least 95%, because I personally do know a lot of women who have made these claims just because they regret it afterwards. And I'm like, it's almost become like this trend, just like people think it's cool now to have like some type of mental disorder where it's like, oh, like I'm a victim, like it's cool to be a victim, and that pisses me off. I'm gonna be honest. It pisses me off.
It should. And the truth is that if you follow behavior in voting by women and you follow trends in buying by women, you'll note that peer pressure, even towards things which are not considered to be great, if it brings women attention, they will follow trends which are not even good for them to follow.
Agreed.
Now, men do this too. I'm not being biased here and saying it's only women. I'm just saying that women are more prone to that. That's why propaganda works so well on them. That's how they were able to get an entire generation of women to begin smoking, was because they were so susceptible to that propaganda. So I would actually have to agree with you as well that as I look at this, it's hard for me to believe that the kind of rampant stats on what is considered SA are anything short of lies, essentially, absent proof.
And Andrew, I'm sure you could agree with me on this. I think we both think here that SA is an absolutely terrible thing, awful thing.
Awful thing. Put them against the wall, as they say.
Yeah. I do think though that there is
but that's why the burden of proof should be so high. The burden of proof should be so high because the punishment should be so overwhelming. So the punishment for something like this should be overwhelming towards a man who conducts this. And that's why we should be very careful about the particulars of how justice is served up here. And we should have evidence for this so that we can definitely put these people where they belong, which is in prison for life.
Yeah. And they have done, they have looked at an analysis, comparing this to other crimes, and what they found to be provably false, where the woman either recanted the story and there was proof that he was somewhere else, or she, I think I already said she recanted it, or she proved that she was lying. In comparison to other kinds of crime reports, the rate I think is 2x or even 3x the rate of like false accusations of other kinds of crimes. And then I specifically actually want to point out something that happens to minority men at even further disproportionate rates. I don't know if you know the case of Emmett Till, the boy who was falsely accused by a white woman back in I believe it was in the 50s and they lynched him.
Okay, wait.
Wait.
Okay, well, I'll just be quiet there.
Oh.
We're not exactly sure that it was. I've heard it conflicted as to.
My understanding on her.
There's no proof, though.
My understanding on her deathbed. This woman on her deathbed, the woman who accused it, recanted and said that she made it up. At least that's the research that I did.
I remember reading that
maybe,
too. Yeah.
I could be wrong there. I don't want to throw shade at anybody unless I know for sure that it's true. So,
if my research serves me correct, I do believe that she later in her life she said, I either embellished, I exaggerated, or I just made the whole thing up. But what happened to Emmett Till, this young black boy, he apparently flirted, said something lascivious to a white woman, and her family or friends, whatever, I don't know the exact details, lynched him. And so false accusations happen all the time, and they actually specifically tend to negatively.
She was jealous of someone else.
I don't know.
Yeah, he had.
But this actually happens at higher rates too. Typically, when you see white woman, black man, it happens at a much higher frequency. It happened to Patrice O'Neill, rest in peace. Happens to frequently black men because there's an added level, at least for some of these white women who, for example, have consensual sex with them, and then they regret it for, there's perhaps racist reasons for it. But there's a component of regret here. They regret it. Like if you hook up with somebody consensually and you later regret it, That's not SA.
No, it's not.
But
Well, and
no,
we
but
also
you
see
can.
this. We can also see this same trend happen with the lies of paternity, which is far more prevalent than previously was understood with DNA testing. So now we know that the amount of paternity fraud is, in some cases it's been estimated as high as 20%. I think that that might be a wildly high estimate, to be honest with you. And I think that the evidence for that is somewhat scant. But it's definitely more prevalent than we thought it was. There's no doubt that that's true. We're not saying that SA against women may not be prevalent from men. It probably is. We're just disputing as to whether or not the justification for why you should not be around men based on these kind of wildly inflated numbers is justified. That's the point we're making.
What if we talk about biology and the fact that men are a lot stronger than women? And so I would, let's say, like if I had to choose, obviously, to fight a woman or a man, I'm going to choose the woman because I wouldn't be able to protect myself against a man that wanted to harm me.
Yeah, sure. But nobody would dispute that. This is why the question was about a bear or a man. Bear is
Well, it's
obviously
just a factor that
much,
plays into
but a
it.
bear is obviously much stronger than a man, right?
I said I
Much
would rather
stronger.
be a man, but
Yeah, but we weren't making the comparison as to whether or not men are stronger than women. Obviously, that's true. Generally speaking, that's true. Even weaker men are stronger than even strong women in many cases. So, we wouldn't dispute this, but that would not lead to the conclusion that that means that the prevalence of SA as advertised is as high as it's advertised.
that,
I don't know. Back to the bear thing, though. I feel like
I don't want anything to do with that.
if women were truly this scared of men, as they love to pretend they are, like there wouldn't be such rampant casual sex occurring. They wouldn't be getting drunk around men, partying, being alone with men, having male friends, all this stuff. So I don't know. It seems like logic would dictate that a man would be safer than a bear, but
It's sad to say, but honestly, like you're far more likely to be, assaulted by someone you know than
Yeah.
someone you don't know, like a strange man.
that's a
you
good
know.
point.
Yeah.
That's a good point. It's like, would you?
I agree that but the predatory behavior in that regard works both ways. For instance, I have
I
the
said
data
somebody-
here as well when you're talking about, for instance, women who are in positions of authority over men, which would include minors inside of prison, where there's female prison guards, the SA skyrockets in comparison to the other way. The same thing happens when you're talking about teachers, for instance. Even when you're talking about clergy, while it's true that more men conduct these things, as a percentage of how many are in these positions, women conduct them against men far more, which is interesting. So I'm not so willing to just say that this is a problem which comes from men and only men.
I'm not saying it is. Why do you think it is that it's more prevalent for women, or like let's say teachers, to prey on male students? I'm just
Well,
wondering. Like,
this
I'm
is,
just.
this is an interesting question.
Close to child abuse.
I'm not so sure that anybody knows exactly why, but I think it's due to the fact of basically being able to manipulate and gain attention. But it's hard to say. This is a phenomenon which may have been going on for a long time, just kind of unrecognized because, again, when we're talking about SA, this is one of my points when I say that men often will disregard things that women would consider SA. There's a lot, and this is the truth. Nobody's going to like to hear this, but there are young men probably who are 16, 17 years old who bang their teacher and aren't upset about it, right?
Yeah.
That's probably just true.
That's
So,
grooming, though.
I
that's
do-
not okay for
It's
those
not
men.
okay.
That's
Hold
not.
on.
That's
Okay.
they were 100% groomed.
No, I'm
and
not disputing
assaulted.
that. I'm not disputing that it is. I'm saying that the way that it would be perceived by a male versus how it's perceived by women are different. And that's why I'm saying that we can't hold the
He was
dualistic
answering my
standard when it comes to this.
I agree with
Do
you.
you see what I'm saying? So, I don't disagree with you. It's absolutely SA. And they're underage, everything else. It's